Reading the 2022 Gallup poll, it indicated most workers, after taking that poll, only 11% non-union employees described themselves as extremely interested in joining a union, and 58% said that they were not at all interested in joining a union. And when you add to the fact that 90% of people who are in a union have never even voted to be in the union that they're forced to pay dues to. When I'm back home, I hear often from people who say that there was once a need that is less and less there for workers. That their unions were once served a great purpose has a diminishing role, and so I wonder if that's what's being reflected in these polls. Is it Delhi?
Delhi, Representative.
What are your thoughts on that? What's causing the diminishing desire to see a benefit or value in being a member of a union?
Well, I think there's a number of factors. For one, the legal environment that we're in has changed since the 1950s. There are significantly more regulations at both the state and federal level prohibiting all sorts of behaviors, from safety to discriminatory practices, that weren't in place back then. So I think that's one factor. But I think a larger factor is that the American worker has changed. Unions are still operating as though it's 1955, and Ford, GM, and now Stellantis own 80% of the auto industry. And that's just not the case. We are in a different economy. Workers want different things. They want the ability to make a choice freely and fairly and without interference. And they want that choice to be meaningful, but they also want independence and a direct relationship and workplace flexibility and work from home and a whole bunch of things that just aren't conducive to a one-size-fits-all approach to how you regulate a workplace.
And the once promise that once you unionize, then everyone's salaries go up, you get better salaries, better benefits. That's not necessarily the case, is it? I mean, statistically, it's not necessarily the case.
No, I mean, I think when you look at
studies, sorry.
No, I apologize for interrupting. When you look at the data, you can't just take the average and assume that it applies equally across the states. $100,000 in California is very different than $100,000 in South Carolina. And so when you adjust for cost of living and various other factors, the evidence is largely inconclusive. There are some studies on one side that say there's a minor improvement. There are some studies on the other that say, no, it's actually a minor detriment. So I don't think this is a panacea where you can say, oh, all of a sudden you have unions and this creates a higher wage environment. I don't think that's accurate or borne out by the literature.
I know that in Missouri at one point there was a study that was done that was very intriguing, because Missouri is surrounded by mostly states that are right to work. And when you compared the salaries of people that were living inside the border of Missouri compared to the counties that are just outside of the border, it was startling how much people actually make more money in the right to work states just across the border in Missouri. My other question has to do with people's decision and whether or not to join. And of course, in right to work states, often the argument is that they are receiving a benefit. That if they choose not to join the union, they're receiving some benefit. They're the free rider. I call it a captive rider situation. Can you talk about how the impact of the bill, the Workers' Choice Act, might impact that decision and actually benefit the workers?
Absolutely, and I'll try to be brief. So the issue that we have is one of exclusive representation. If I'm a dissenting employee in a unionized workplace, I can't negotiate my own terms and conditions of employment. On the union side, the argument is that's a free rider if I don't pay. I'm getting all of the contract benefits and I'm not paying anything. On the employee side, I'm a forced rider. I'm being forced to accept benefits and terms that I may not want and that I think I can do better. What Workers' Choice does is it eliminates that problem by saying, if you don't want to be part of a union, negotiate your own terms, and unions, you only have to represent those employees who are actually paying you. So it's a great solution to an age-old problem in labor law.
I think it's a fair thing all around.